Mr. SOAP, man. Mr. SOAP. Oh, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Son of a Preacher Man. As always, I'm your host, Soap Man. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a green screen behind me. It's just a beautiful day in my neighborhood. So check this out. In my last episode, King Saul died. And as a result of the death of the first king of Israel, it leaves a power vacuum. Now, the throne passes over to Saul's descendant through Jonathan, his son. And so Saul's grandson Ishbosheth becomes king. But Ishbosheth is a young and weak king. And so after the death of King Saul and Ishbosheth's ascendancy to the throne, I don't know if that's a real word. After Ishbosheth ascends the throne, there's a lot of uncertainty. David is the number one contender to be king. Saul's grandson Ishbosheth is king, but he's a weak king. So there's this power vacuum. There's this scramble for power. A lot of uncertainty. A lot of moving parts. Ladies and gentlemen, Son of a Preacher Man proudly presents to you the second book of Samuel. Moving parts. That's right, we are now in the second book of Samuel. First book of Samuel is over and done with. It ended with the death of King Saul. Second book of Samuel, first chapter, verses 1 through 9 reads, Now it came to pass after the death of Saul, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Amalekites, and David had abode 2 days in Ziklag. And it came even to pass on the third day that, behold, a man came out of the camp from Saul, with his clothes rent, and earth was upon his head. And so it was when he came to David that he fell to the earth, and did obeisance. And David said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Israel I am escaped. And David said unto him, How went the matter? I prayed. He says, I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, That the people are fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Saul and Jonathan his son are dead also. And David said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Saul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon Mount Gilboa, behold, Saul leaned upon his spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me. And I answered, Here am I. And he said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. And he said unto me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. Okay, we're going to unpack all this. Rest assured. 2 Samuel, first chapter, verses 10 through 16 reads, And I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and I have brought them hither to my lord. Then David took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him. And they mourned and wept and fasted until even, for Saul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of the Lord, and for the house of Israel, because they were fallen by the sword. And David said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger and Amalekite. And David said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy the Lord's anointed? And David called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And David said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth has testified against thee, saying, I have slain the Lord's anointed. Now let me tell you what just happened. Saul dies in battle against the Philistines. David's in Philistine territory at Ziklag, on the lands of King Achish, the Philistine king of Gath. So David gets a messenger bringing him tidings of the battle. And he's got trophies. He's got proof that King Saul is dead. He says, King Saul is dead. Here, I've brought you his crown and his bracelet. And he says, David says to this young Amalekite kid, he says, he's not a kid, he's a young man. Well, before he shows him the bracelet and the crown, he says, I've come to bring you news, tidings of the battle. King Saul and his son Jonathan are dead. David says, how do you know this? The Amalekite tells him, I just happened by chance to be following King Saul. Well, not following King Saul, but close to the battle. And I came upon King Saul leaning on his spear. Here's the thing, look at me for a second. If you saw my last episode, then only one or two things could be happening. Either this, because in the last episode, the Bible said that King Saul was hit by arrows and fell on his own spear. Okay? So either this Amalekite man is lying, or King Saul didn't fall on his spear and die. Maybe he was still alive and lingering on, and then this Amalekite came on. But the stories don't match up. I think this Amalekite is lying. He stole Saul's crown and bracelet and just brought it back looking for a reward. Because the Bible clearly says that Saul fell upon his own sword and died. And that after his armor bearer saw this happen, that he fell on his own sword and died. So I personally think this Amalekite dude is lying. He's just looking for a quick come up. I don't blame him. Times are hard. They always been hard. So he tells David, I happened to come by him, during the battle. He asked me to slay him. I knew he wasn't going to survive his wounds. And he didn't want the Philistines to abuse and torture him. So I did him a favor and killed him. Now I'm doing you a favor. This is the young Amalekite's point of view. He says, I did King Saul a favor. Now I'm doing you a favor, bringing this news, bringing you his crown, bringing you his bracelet. What's up? This dude don't know his goose is cooked. He don't know who he dealing with. Because from David's point of view, how was you not afraid to kill the king? And I was. So he tells one of his boys, he says, fall upon him. And that's 2,000-year-old jargon for smoke this fool. Okay? So this Amalekite man, this young Amalekite man, he's looking for a reward. In his mind, he's done nothing wrong. He has no clue, as David said, your mouth has testified against you. And so David has him killed. And that's just the type of guy that David is. He's not simple. He's a complicated cat. So 2 Samuel chapter 2 verses 1 through 7 reads, and it came to pass after this that David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, go up. And David said, whither shall I go up? And he said, unto Hebron. And David went up thither, and his two wives also, Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, and Abigail, you remember, Nabal's wife, the Carmelite. And his men that were with him did David bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah. And they told David, saying that the men of Jabesh Gilead were they that buried Saul. And David sent messengers unto the men of Jabesh Gilead, and said unto them, blessed be ye of the Lord, that ye have showed this kindness unto your Lord, even unto Saul, and have buried him. And now the Lord show kindness and truth unto you, and I will also requite thee this kindness, because ye have done this thing. Therefore now let your hands be strengthened, and be ye valiant. for your master Saul is dead, and also the house of Judah have anointed me king over them. Now David let me unpack what I just read. David prays to God. Now that Saul is dead, David prays to God. He says, is it safe for me to go back into the land? Can I go back up into my people's land? God says, it's safe, go up. So David says, look how David leans on God for every decision he makes, for every direction he's gonna take. He asks before he goes. That's one of the reasons God favors David, is because he don't do anything of himself. He always comes to the big boss and asks first. So David says, where should I go? God says to Hebron. So David packs up his former rebellion, now that King Saul is dead, his tiny kingdom, his large militia. I don't know how you want to describe it. He's got 600 diehard soldiers with him and their families. David has a small community. He has a small kingdom going on here. 600? That's more than a handful. So he packs up his 600 warriors and their families, and he transports them from Ziklag in Philistine territory to Hebron, which is in the territory of the house of Judah. And the people of the house of Judah anoint him king over them. David is 23 years old at this time. The first time David was anointed king, he was just a young shepherd boy who was popular amongst his community. He wasn't really known until after he slew the giant Philistine champion, Goliath. And now here he is. He's been on the run from King Saul basically since he slew Goliath. I think that's been about 5 years. He's 23 years old now. And he's just been anointed a second time over the one tribe of Judah. And so he reaches out to the men of Yabesh Gilead. I don't know if you remember who the men of Yabesh Gilead are. They're the people, if you remember my video called The Outcast, it was about the judge Jephthah. That's around the area where Jephthah was on the right side of the Jordan River. And so David sends messengers to these guys, thanking them for taking Saul and his son's bodies off the wall, because after Saul's death, the Philistines pinned his body and his head to the wall. And the men of Yabesh Gilead came down and they took it down and gave Saul a proper burial. They observed the proper customs. They fasted 7 days. And so David, let me explain something now. He's got a little power now. He has this small kingdom. He has 3 or 4 wives, and he has money. He's made some significant strides from his pillaging and plundering the Amalekites numerous times to his taking possession over all of Nabal's resources, including his wife Abigail. David got money. And so he sent resources after his big come up over the Amalekites. And I don't know if you saw the last episode. In the last episode, the Amalekites spoiled David and his men's family in Ziklag. And David came back and took all of their spoil that they had got from him and all of their spoil they had got from the surrounding areas. So David has made a number of come-ups. He's got money. He greased palms all throughout, southern Israel after his come up over the Amalekites. And now after the death of King Saul, he's sending gifts to the men of Yabesh Gilead because he can afford to do it. And then he drops this little hint to him. Hey, thanks for burying Saul. You did him honor. I'm going to bless you for it. May the Lord bless you for it. And here's a footnote. I just got anointed king over Judah. Don't let that escape you. 2 Samuel chapter 2 verses 8 through 16 reads, "But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul." So Ishbosheth is Saul's son, not Jonathan. Ishbosheth is Saul's son, not Jonathan. Let me correct the mistake I made earlier. It says, "But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim. I don't know how to pronounce that. And made him king over Gilead." Okay, so now Saul's son Ishbosheth, the crown passes to him, rightfully so. It says, "And made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all Israel. And Ishbosheth, Saul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Israel, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Judah followed David. And the time that David was king in Hebron over the house of Judah was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, went out of Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of David went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said to Joab, "Let the young men now arise and play before us." And Joab said, "Let them arise." Then there arose and went over by number 12 of Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and the 12 of the servants of David. And they caught every one of his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in his fellow's side. So they fell down together, wherefore that place was called Helkath Hazurim, which is in Gibeon. Okay, so let me unpack what I just read for clarity. You have, after the death of King Saul, you have these moving parts. The crown passes to Saul's son Ishbosheth, who's 40 years old and a weak king. Just take my word for that. Judah, the house of Judah, they anoint David as their king. So you have this splitting of the kingdom of Israel. One tribe follows David, the other 11 follow Saul's son Ishbosheth. But understand that Abner, who was Saul's number one general, he's the one who holds the real power. Ishbosheth is just a figurehead. He's king by right and by blood. But make no mistake, Abner, the general, is the one who holds the power. So you have these two kingdoms. David's small, tiny kingdom. The house of Judah have anointed him king. And Ishbosheth, his larger kingdom, really ran by the general Abner. So they're in the territory of Benjamin, and these two factions meet at a well-known pool in the territory of Gibeon. The general for Ishbosheth is on one side of the pool with his men, and David's number one general, also his nephew Joab, is on the other side of the pool with David's men. Okay? Have I set the scene? Have I established the premise? So Abner calls over to Joab. He says, "Let the men play before us. Let's have a little contest." Look, there's a lot of tension between these two factions. They're vying and competing for power. There are a lot of moving parts. By right, Ishbosheth should be king, and he is. But David is popular, and his popularity cannot be denied. A lot of people want David to be king because in their eyes, he's clearly the better choice. He's a hero, and he's been a hero for a long time. Ishbosheth ain't never swung a sword. while David has failed many foes. So Abner says to Joab, let the men play before us. Joab says, cool. So 12 men from Abner's forces get into competition with 12 men of Joab's forces. And the 12 men of Joab's troops kill the 12 men of Abner's group. It says, every one of them took his fellow by the head and thrust him through the side so that they all fell down together. So Abner is on the losing side of this competition. 2 Samuel chapter 2, verses 17 through 23 reads, and there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten and the men of Israel before the servants of David. And there were 3 sons of Zeruiah. It says, and I have this in big bold red print. It says, and there were 3 sons of Zeruiah there, Joab and Abishai and Asahel, which is also pronounced Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as a wild roe. And Asahel pursued after Abner, and in going he turned not to the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, art thou Saul? And he answered, I am. And Abner said to him, turn thee aside to the right hand or to the left. He says, turn thee aside to thy right hand or to thy left, and lay hold on one of the young men, and take thee his armor. But Asahel would not turn aside from following him. And Abner said again to Asahel, turn thee aside from following me. Wherefore should I smite thee to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab thy brother? Howbeit he refused to turn aside. Wherefore Abner with the hinder end of the spear smote him under the 5th rib, that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Now let's unpack this for clarity's sake. There are 3 sons of Zeruiah, David's sister. We don't know if this is David's older sister or younger sister. If Zeruiah is David's older sister, then the 3 nephews of David could very well be his age or older. If she's younger than David, they are younger. Now we spoke in, I'm not sure if it was the last episode or the episode before last, about 1 or 2 of these brothers. Abishai was the brother that went down into Saul's camp with David and wanted to kill Saul, but instead they opted to steal his spear and water. And I told you in that episode, Abishai is going to be instrumental in David's success. Now Abishai has 2 brothers, so there are 3 in all, 3 nephews of David, and they are important in this story. Otherwise, I wouldn't be taking the time to talk about them. Now, their names are Joab, who is David's #1 military commander. Joab is David's go-to guy. Just like Abner was Saul's go-to guy, Joab is David's go-to guy. Joab takes the army out and brings the army in, just like David used to do for Saul. Joab does David's dirty work, and Joab is good at it. Now, the other brother is Abishai. Abishai is a standout warrior and probably in the top 3 individuals in hand-to-hand combat in the whole Bible. If you took all the hardcore, battle-hardened, raw people in the Bible, Abishai, I would say, I would give him, he's in the top 5. And that's saying a lot, because at the top of that pack would be Moses. David would be in there, and that only leaves 3 other slots. And Abishai would be in that slot. He is no joke. He is tough as nails. his skill in battle and as a warrior is practically unparalleled. Now, the third brother is Asahel. And I believe Joab is the youngest, I believe Joab is the oldest, Abishai is the middle brother, and Asahel or Asahel is the youngest. If Joab isn't the oldest, then he's the middle, and Abishai is the oldest. But I believe Asahel is the youngest. Anyway, I spent a lot of time on that, sorry. Asahel, the Bible says, is as fast as a wild roe, a deer or a gazelle, if you can believe that. The Bible is claiming this dude is damn near superhuman. Deers run like 40 miles an hour. And the Bible is saying that this dude is as fast as a deer. So anyway, I mean, this brother, this son of Zeruiah, Asahel, is pursuing Abner. Now, I don't know if you as fast as a deer, you got Usain Bolt type speed. Like, you running laps around Usain Bolt. So I don't know if that means, like, when it says Asahel was following Abner, does that mean Abner was on a horse and Asahel was following him on foot? Because if he's fast as a deer, he's certainly fast enough to keep up with a horse. Anyways, whether Abner was on a horse or not is irrelevant. Abner warns Asahel. He tells him, dude, stop following me. Now, I must emphasize, Abner is a war veteran and a hero in his own right. He is well known. He's been through many battles. He is battle hardened. He is good at what he does. You cannot take anything away from him just because he don't have his own separate story in the Bible. They don't come no better than Abner. So he warns Asahel. He says, look, dude. He says, you better go. Quit following me. Asahel doesn't listen. He continues to follow him. So he tells him again, homie, go mess with one of these little young cats. Go mess with one of these little rookies. You don't want no smoke here. And then he tells him, how am I going to be able to hold my head up and look your brother in the face if I kill you? Asahel doesn't listen. So the Bible says Abner smites him with the butt, the non-sharp end of the spear. Caught him slipping under the fifth rib, kills him on the spot. Hey, what more can you do but tell a person? 2 Samuel chapter 2 verses 24 through 32 reads, Joab also and Abishai pursued after Abner. And the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Ammon, that liveth before Giah, by the way of the wilderness in Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became a troop, and stood on top of an hill. And Abner called to Joab and said, shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then, ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren? And Joab said, as God liveth, unless thou hadst spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up, every one from following his brother. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still and pursued after Israel no more. Neither fought they any more. And Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain, and passed over Jordan, and went through all Bithron. And they came to Mahanaim, however you pronounce that. And Joab returned from following Abner. And when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of David's servants 19 men and Asahel. But the servants of David had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. 360 men died. And they took up Asahel and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Bethlehem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at break of day. 2 Samuel chapter 3 verses 1 through 8 reads, Now there was long war between the house of Saul and Now there was long war between the house of Saul and the house of David. But David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker. And unto David were sons born in Hebron. And his firstborn was Amnon of Ahinoam, the Jezreelitess, and his second Chileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Gesher, and the fourth Adonijah, the son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah, the son of Abital, and the sixth Ithream, by Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Saul and the house of David, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Saul. And Saul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of Aiah. I like that name. And Ishbosheth said to Abner, and I have this blows me. I want you to hear me. What I'm about to read to you, this blows me. I'm finna unpack all this for clarity's sake. But look what I have in big, bold, red print. Let me go back a little bit. It talks about how David's getting stronger and stronger, and his followers are at war with Saul's followers. And it's saying David has all these kings, and then it says, and Saul had a concubine. The late Saul has a concubine whose name was Rizpah. And she's the daughter of Aiah. And it says, and Ishbosheth said to Abner, wherefore hast thou gone into my father's concubine? I want you to absorb that. You probably don't know where I'm going with this. It says, then was Abner very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, am I a dog's head, which against Judah do show kindness this day unto the house of Saul thy father, to his brethren and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of David, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman? Now let me explain to you what just happened. Look at me, please. You got these two factions. One is the house of David, one is the house of Saul. And they're competing for the throne. Okay? Ishbosheth is the king of Israel. David is the king of Judah. Ishbosheth is a weak king. The only thing standing between him and certain annihilation is his hero, war-hardened, battle-hardened General Abner. And Ishbosheth comes to Abner and says, I heard you slept with my daddy concubine. Somebody told me you slept with my daddy concubine. How stupid can you be? I mean, you got to be You got to be about 10 cards short of a full deck to not see the error in what Ishbosheth did. Now, I know you probably saying to yourself, no, so man, he the king. Abner's supposed to do what he say. Supposed to. Let me tell you something. Them rules is more like guidelines. Ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean? Keep to the code? Well, the code is really more just like guidelines. Because if you a foolish king, see how long your authority lasts. See how long you reign as king if you a bad king. Because you can only be king over people. You can only be king if you have people to be king over. You can only be a leader if you have people to follow you. Why would you turn to your number one security, your walking armor, the best soldier you have in your ranks, your bodyguard, your advisor, and say to him, I heard you slept with my daddy concubine. And if I was Abner, I'd have told him, so what if I did sleep with your daddy concubine? Let's pretend I did. Your daddy did. And you might be saying to yourself, nah, Soap Man, you wrong. You wrong. I can hear you from over here. I can hear you all the way through the production and the TV screen. Nah, Soap Man, that ain't right. He the king. Abner's supposed to do it. Abner wrong. You and Abner wrong. Well, guess what? You may disagree with me, but Abner didn't. Abner got mad at Ishbosheth and he said, fool, is you crazy? Here I am risking my neck for you day and night, and you got the nerve to talk to me about your daddy's concubine? And had it been me, I'd have said, yeah, I slept with your daddy. So what if I slept with your daddy concubine? Yo, daddy did. 2 Samuel chapter 3. Verses 9 through 18 reads, and Abner furthermore said, so do God to Abner, and more also, except as the Lord hath sworn to David, even so I do to him, to translate the king from the house of Saul and set up the throne of David over Israel and over Judah, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. So for the few of you that was sitting over there talking about, nah, you wrong, something, man, you wrong, well, lump Abner into the boat with me, because Abner agrees with the Soap Man. Abner's in lockstep with the Soap Man. We're joined at the hip. Abner says, he tells Ishbosheth, boy, you better count your lucky stars and pray to God that I don't. He tells him, you better pray to God. He says, I'm translating, this is the Negro translation for you. He says, the Lord do so to me and more also. Translation, you better pray to God I don't hand your kingdom over to your adversary, David. He names him David. You better pray. Abner's saying this because he's got the power to do so. And you don't come to the person, you don't come to the kingmaker and say to him, I heard you slap with my daddy, concubine. So what if he did? What is it? You want her? Is she more important to you than your throne? Just blows me away how naive Ishbosheth is. His lack of finesse, his lack of awareness. And it says, after Abner tore him a new one, it says, and he could not answer Abner a word again because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers to David on his behalf, saying, whose is the land? Saying also, make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Israel unto thee. And he said, well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require. This is what David says back to Abner. And David says back through a messenger, he said, well, this meaning this is well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except they first bring Michal, Saul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. And David sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Saul's son, saying, deliver me my wife, Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Philistines. And Ishbosheth sent and took her from her husband, even from Phaltiel, the son of Laish. And her husband went with her, along weeping behind her, to Bahurim. Then said Abner unto him, go, return. And he returned. And Abner had communication with the elders of Israel, saying, ye sought for David in times past to be king over you. Now then do it. For the Lord hath spoken of David, saying, by the hand of my servant David will I save my people Israel out of the hand of the Philistines and out of the hand of all their enemies. So Saul takes it a step further. He doesn't just threaten to hand the kingdom over to David. He takes action. He sends messengers and starts making preparations. He says, make a league with me. I'll give you the throne. And Abner also spake in the ears of Benjamin. And Abner went also to speak in the ears of David in Hebron, all that seemed good to Israel. So Abner's playing middleman between David and the various tribes, the elders of these 11 tribes. And it says, so Abner came to David in Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. I should have had that in big, bold, red print. Abner leaves David's table in peace. And behold, the servants of David and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with David in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he had sent him away, and he is gone in peace. Then Joab came to the king and said, what hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away? And he is quite gone. Thou knows Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. 2 Samuel chapter 3 verses 26 through 32 reads, and when Joab was come out from David, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Sirah. But David knew it not. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the 5th rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother. And afterward, when David heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before the Lord forever from the blood of Abner the son of Ner. Let it rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house. And let there not fail from the house of Joab one that hath an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on the sword, or that lacketh bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother slew Abner, because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. And David said to Joab and to all the people that were with him, rend your clothes and gird you with sackcloth, and mourn after Abner. And King David himself followed the bier. I must type that wrong. I don't know what that is. They followed after the funeral procession. And they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice and wept at the grave of Abner, and all the people wept. So let me unpack what just happened. After this contest between Saul and Joab, where Asahel, Joab's brother, subsequently dies, it's not hard to imagine that Joab and Abishai are gunning for Abner. He killed their little brother. Now, that's not Abner's fault. You ask Soap Man, Abner was in the right. But, I mean, you put yourself in Abishai and Joab's shoes, they don't care. Abner killed their brother, and they want revenge. That's not hard to imagine. So time goes on. David makes peace with Abner. Abner comes to David. They have a meeting. David throws Abner and his 20 men a feast. David sends Abner away in peace to secure his throne and kingdom. Because now Abner is working on David's behalf. He's an asset to David both politically and militarily. Joab doesn't care. When he returns to Hebron with a great spoil, he's told that Abner has left and has made a peace treaty with David. They've just had a meeting there in Hebron, and David has sent him away in peace. Joab comes to David, and first he's like, why have you made peace with this man? He is our enemy. You can't trust him. David pays it no mind. Joab has authority as David's #1 general. He's second in command. So he's, without David's knowledge, sends for Abner and gets him to return back to Hebron. He meets him in the gate of the city. He speaks with him quietly, probably under the guise of peace. And he kills him in a very shady, dirty way. It is very bogus to kill a man after he's left your dinner table in peace. So Abner is deceived and killed by Joab and Abishai in the worst way. Low down and dirty, under David's nose without his permission. And this is a precursor, okay? This is an omen. This act by Abner, it is telling. It is foreboding. It is prophetic. What I'm saying is, Joab is a problem, and this is telling of what's to come. So 2 Samuel chapter 3 verses 33 through 39 reads, and the king lamented over Abner and said, died Abner as a fool dieth. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put into fetters. Meaning, he didn't die as a prisoner. He was deceived. He was backstabbed. He says, as a man falleth before wicked men, so fellest thou. And all the people wept again over him. And when all the people came to cause David to eat meat, while it was yet day, David sware, saying, so do God to me, and more also if I taste bread or aught else till the sun be down. And all the people took notice of it, and it pleased them, as whatsoever the king did pleased all the people. Now David is giving this speech in the presence of Joab. David wants Joab to know that he does not approve, and he's upset with him. And it says, for all the people, and it says, when the people saw David and how he behaved, it pleased them, because everything David did pleased them. He is an icon, an idol, and a rock star, and he can do no wrong. It says, for all the people and all Israel understood that day that it was not of the king to slay Abner the son of Ner. And the king said unto his servants, know ye not that there is a prince and a great man fallen this day in Israel? And I am this day weak, though anointed king. Look at this, he throws this in. Though anointed king, And these men, the sons of Zeruiah, be too hard for me. Now that says a lot coming from David. To say that his nephews are too hard for him speaks volume. And the Lord shall reward the doer of evil according to his wickedness. 2 Samuel chapter 4 verses 1 through 7 reads, And when Saul's son heard that Abner was dead in Hebron, his hands were feeble, and all the Israelites were troubled. And Saul's son had 2 men that were captains of bands. The name of one was Baanah, and the name of the other Rechab. The sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite of the children of Benjamin. For Beeroth also was reckoned to Benjamin, and the Beerothites fled to Gittaim. Jesus, these names of these cities and these dudes. It says, and were sojourners there until this day. And Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son who was lame of his feet. And I have this in big, bold, red print because I'm going to get into this in another episode, in a future episode. I'm going to break this down. This blows my mind. And I have in big, bold, red print, it's talking about this son of Jonathan. And he has a similar name to Saul's son, okay? So I don't want y'all to get confused. And it says, and Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son that was lame of his feet. And I have in big, bold, red print, it says, he was 5 years old when the tidings of Saul and Jonathan out of Israel, it says he was 5 years old when the tidings came of Saul and Jonathan out of Jezreel. And his nurse took him up and fled. And it came to pass, as she made haste to flee, that he fell and became lame. And his name was Mephibosheth. So I don't want you to get him confused with Saul's son. This is Jonathan's son, which is Saul's grandson. And his name is Mephibosheth. But Saul has a son named Ishbosheth. Ishbosheth is king. Mephibosheth, who is Saul's grandson by Jonathan. I'm sorry, I'm confusing myself. Ishbosheth is the king, and he's Saul's son. Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son, which would make him Saul's grandson. Okay? Mephibosheth is Jonathan's son. Ishbosheth is Saul's son. It says, and it's going to flip back and forth through, I don't know, it just dropped this story of Mephibosheth right into why it's talking about Ishbosheth. So I wanted to clear that up for you. It says, and the sons of Rimmon and the Beerothite and Rechab and Baanah. Jesus. I'm sorry. And the sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, Rechab and Baanah went down and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon. And they came thither into the midst of the house, as though they would have fetched wheat. And they smote him under the 5th rib. And Rechab and Baanah his brother escaped. For they came into the house as he lay on his bed in his bedchamber. And they smote him and slew him and beheaded him, and took his head and got them away through the plain all that night. Okay, now here's a spoiler alert. This episode is about to end the same way it started. Pay attention. Let's unpack this for clarity. The Bible talks about Ishbosheth, Saul's son. And after Ishbosheth hears that his number one general Abner is dead, he's shaking and quivering like a leaf blowing in the wind. Then the Bible drops this odd outlier of a story in on you about Mephibosheth. And I'm not going to dig into this now. I'm going to dig into it later. But Mephibosheth is Saul's grandson. And he's also in line to be king. He's Saul's grandson by Jonathan. He's Jonathan's son. And Jonathan is Saul's son. Hope I'm not confusing you. But he's lame of both feet. Because when they got word, when Saul's family got word that the king, Saul, and his son Jonathan and two more of Jonathan's brothers, when they got word that they had all been killed by the Philistines, they panicked, they packed up and fled. Now, in the midst of fleeing, I don't know what happened. I don't know if this lady tripped and dropped this kid. I don't know what happened. But the boy is now lame of both of his feet. Then they go back to this story of Ishbosheth. And it seems that he's murdered by two of his men following news of Abner's death. And they cut off Ishbosheth's head. They murder him in his sleep. They cut off his head. And 2 Samuel chapter 4 verses 8 through 12 reads, "And they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron, and said to the king, Behold, the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Saul thine enemy, which sought thy life. And the Lord hath avenged my lord the king this day of Saul, and of his seed. And David answered Rechab and Baanah his brother, the sons of Rimmon the Beerothite, and said unto them, As the Lord liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all adversity. When one told me, saying, Behold, Saul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him and slew him in Ziklag, who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings. How much more, when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house upon his bed, shall I not therefore require his blood of your hands, and take you away from the earth? And David commanded his young men, and they slew them, and cut off their hands and feet, and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth, and buried it in the sepulchre of Abner in Hebron." So these men, Ishbosheth's own men, murder him in his sleep, in his house, in his bed. And they cut off his head and bring it to David, expecting a reward. And the ironic thing is, David says to them, this recently happened to me. When I was in the Philistine town of Ziklag, an evil Amalekite such as yourself came bringing me tidings of King Saul's death, thinking that I would reward him. And I killed him for it. He says, how much more now will I do to you? He says, when wicked men kill their king in his bed, in his house, how much more will I require of you? And he has these men killed. And he chops off their hands and their feet. Folks, that's what you call making a statement. They obviously didn't know David. Not only is he a warrior poet, a great king, and a political mastermind, he is a righteous man, and he is fair. And these two goons learned the hard way that he is not to be easily trifled with, or that he is not to be trifled with at all, but he is also not to be easily swayed and influenced. It ain't all about the money to him. It ain't all about the throne. What David fears most is the wrath of G-O-D. D. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this. We've come to the conclusion of this episode. I want to thank you for joining me. If you're new to this channel, hit that like and subscribe button. If you have any compliments, comments, or insults, leave them in the comments section. I'll see you same soap time, same soap channel next week. Peace out.